Darin Olien, welcome to the American Glutton Podcast.
What's up, man? Good to be here, Ethan.
I'm really excited to talk to you. I know you have made health like a very big priority in your life, and delivering tools to others so that they can achieve health. Um, what are toxic inconveniences? I want to hear about this because I do think that a lot of the problems we have are just things we never think about, and that we are in these patterns and habits every day and encountering things, and they're having effects that we don't even know about.
Totally. Yeah, it's the modern day life has bred us incredible conveniences, right? We can turn on the faucet and have running water. We can go to a store and buy all our food and shampoos and conditioners and laundry detergents and cleaning products and all of this stuff. And I'm all for conveniences, right? In a certain way, it's created our modern world. But what I came to realize, so we'll unpack it maybe later, but my dad suffered with in the 90s with chemical sensitivity. And so that was my first, and I was right in the middle of studying physiology, nutrition, all of that stuff. And so my dad's coming to me with all this stuff going, what is happening? Like sending me care packages of my first clean products that he had to scour and find. So 30 years my radar has been up. And so I wrote my first book, Super Life, with foundational ways to stay hydrated and eat nutrient dense food and let the body thrive. But at the same time, dude, with these modern conveniences, they have this rub. And the rub is this fatal flaw that they have, which, I could conjecture as to how the hell they're there, but they are. And so it's this idea that, and it's this reality that these chemicals are all in all of these products, and they show up in the way of endocrine disruptors. They show up in the way of formaldehydes and PFAS chemicals, which are derivatives and grandsons of things like Teflon, right? So now, like, you see things they're trying to rule out and get rid of this Teflon coating, and the gig is up. But the thing is, they have 9,000 other expressions
Right.
of this chemical. And these chemicals, again, we can talk about many of them, but the overarching thing is they're affecting our master glands. They're affecting our hormones. They're affecting our testosterone. They're affecting our estrogen. So they're, on the one hand, we're like, hey, I'm living my life. I'm trying to stay healthy. I'm trying to eat well. And then you have this kind of side game that's happening, and you're getting, you know, punched and hijacked with the glands that are modulating your entire outlook, metabolism, everything. There's also that we need another term, like we need a hole in the head, but there's terms like now they're calling these endocrine disruptors kind of obesogens, because they're starting to see that, number one, they're affecting our metabolism. Number two, they're affecting our energy levels. Number three, they're actually, the body is amazing because it doesn't want the blood toxified. It doesn't want, and our liver does a good job, our kidney does a good job of other fluids. And so when we find these man-made chemicals in these products, the body also then takes those and shoves them into fat stores to keep them out of the way of, the vital organs.
Right.
So at the same time you're running around, you're trying to stay in shape, you're all this stuff, and like, we've all run into these areas of like, why can't I lose the weight? Why can't I do this stuff? Well, there's this toxic soup that we're also is being created in our life every day, all day. So think about, you wake up, turn on the faucet, get a nice big glass of water. Everyone tells you that's a good idea, right? And then you're like, okay, well, if you're not filtering that water properly, because everyone says filter, and filter doesn't necessarily mean the same thing, you're being exposed. And one of the biggest ways that you're being exposed to PFAS chemicals, which are forever chemicals with bioaccumulate that also affect the immune system, the endocrine system, they are in the water. Pesticides are in the water. Pharmaceutical drugs are in the water. Heavy metals can be in the water. So there's a whole host of chemicals just in that glass of water that you're not filtering. Then you go take a shower. And what do you think? Hot water, open the pores, put on your largest, your largest organ now is being exposed to also unfiltered water. So transdermally, you are soaking in chemicals as well. So then you go to, okay, body wash, shampoo, conditioner, lotion, cologne, perfume, women, mascara, beauty product, like, and so now all of a sudden studies show that an average woman, by example, is using about 12 products a day. And that's exposing them to over 100 to 128 man-made chemicals every day, all day. And so some of those are hijacking the immune system, like I said, compromising the endocrine system, and altering their very core of even life itself, because we're seeing testosterone plummet. We're seeing the motility of men's sperm, literally dropping off the scale. So the alarming thing is, yes, and my book is dedicated to my dad because I saw him suffer. But you're just seeing the very fabric of life moving forward, meaning procreate, move on, and those, just by looking at those alone, we're seeing that we're literally neutering our society. And it doesn't have, I mean, I don't even want it to be, it should be dramatic, but I never set out to make a dramatic book. I just wanted to kind of wake up the apathy a bit,
Yeah.
because it's like, where the hell, dude? Where is our regulatory bodies?
So
What's going on?
yeah, like when I think about like the movement from whatever was natural, I always think back to like Michael Pollan's book, and the store-bought bread, the onset from when bread went from
Right.
like 3 ingredients to 30 ingredients, and then it had no
Right.
vitamins, so they had to add them, and there was like a balance.
Right.
Like people were getting sick
Right.
because suddenly they were malnourished, so now they're
Yeah.
throwing in vitamins and niacin and all sorts of stuff to the bread. But the purpose was to get the bread to have a longer shelf life so it wouldn't rot
Right.
very fast. what
Right.
what what is the purpose of a lot of these chemicals? Because like, as you're talking, like, listen, I don't wear deodorant, but it's not like it's banned in my household. I just
Right.
strangely don't stink, and if I stink, I shower, and that gets rid of the stink, like that's how I do it. But my kids use deodorant, and they're always
Right.
talking about certain deodorants that don't have, I forget what it is, aluminum or something. They try to
Yeah.
stay away from that. So
Good
I know
plan.
I'm thinking about this, but like, what is the purpose of filling up a deodorant with all these chemicals? Is it actually making you smell less, or is it the shelf life of the deodorant? Do you know what I'm saying? Or is it just that they can produce more of it?
Yeah, it's all the above. First off, it's lazy as a producer of a product. It's a lazy thing. And so aluminum, they realized that through that and a few other chemistries, that they could basically clog up the pores to stop, and then chemically stop the sweating itself, right? So if you stop the sweating itself, and then you're introducing antibacterial anything, then you're stopping that potential bacteria, that a warm moist place will will create an overgrowth of sorts. And you're right, through the expression of your body's detoxing every day, all day. So what's coming out of your skin can potentially be more smelly for other people. It's a different kind of chemistry, and depending on what they're eating. So, hey, number one, I would say it's a good sign you're not smelling, because again, we're all going to smell after a certain period of
Sure.
time,
Yeah.
but that's a good sign for you from a health perspective. Um, and then, yeah, when they started throwing aluminums in there, was it that they just didn't bother testing and that they wanted to deal with the smelling side of it? There's a little bit of naivete when you look at some of the history of some of this stuff. It was kind of like, hey, let's solve this solution. But then the what happens is, certainly in our modern day world, is there's this thing called plausible deniability, where the companies themselves, if they don't test their product themselves, then they don't, quote unquote, know that their product is harmful.
Right.
And so then they blast it out on the market, and then when the evidence is mounting, or that the population pushes back, or that, God forbid, a tragedy happens where someone's really hurt by any said product more than the deodorant, then there's a regulatory change. So it's everything's kind of flipped on top of its head from my perspective. I don't know how many times, hundreds and hundreds of research articles I'm staring at, I'm reading it, and why is this ingredient in the product when they know that it's a probable carcinogen, when they know that it's creating volatile organic compounds in the body, when they know it's compromising the immune system, and yet it's still in circulation, and yet people can still go buy it. So I see a big fail with the regulatory bodies, and the only thing that I can come up with that makes any sense whatsoever is that the profit of it is greater than the protection of the population. And because if it were the opposite, we would have tested, proven safety first, and that you wouldn't have to be alarmed that your child is going to buy their deodorant, and that it's safe. And again, it's a twilight zone. It's
Yeah.
you.
It's unfortunate, but it does. The, another one of the problems, or a compounding factor, I think, is that it does come off, or it can come off, as almost conspiratorial
Yeah.
and like flat earth kind of stuff. But then the issue with that is, like, okay, go back to Teflon. The people in the it
Mm.
took the people in the factory literally dropping dead, like a
Yeah.
bunch of them, to
Yeah.
get any movement there. Look at cigarettes.
Yeah.
How long did the Surgeon General not make a statement about cigarettes? How long were the tobacco companies allowed to say this product is harmless?
Or 40 years.
40 years. And
Yeah.
so you got to think, like, if I was a company producing chemicals and I knew, and I wasn't testing them for the reason you said, because I could get in trouble if I tested them and found something was safe, I would just make sure my factory workers were well ventilated and well protected,
Yeah.
so that there was no blowback onto me. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like after these big lawsuits, people just tend to get a little bit smarter with how they do business. That also seems to me the way our legal system favors wealth, and
Yeah.
and you can game the system,
Yeah. Well, you think of this stuff, and yeah, maybe for the first time people are hearing some of this stuff, but you have to understand the context here. We're all born into it. And this thing is littered with the studies. We have things like 60 to 80,000 industrial chemicals, man-made chemicals, are created every year, put into the environment. Of that, this is all documented stuff. Of that, only about 1,500 are tested. And and how they're tested is only linearly, because none of them, not any of those 68,000 are virtually tested as they interact with each other, right? So it's an experiment that's just blasted in us. And so again, you are, you have 9,000 derivatives of this Teflon now, PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances, right? It's all over. And read the data. The data is these are endocrine disruptors. CDC says probable carcinogen. So these things are something you're buying for your children. You're going, hey man, I like the idea of a bib on my young child and it's easy to wipe off. Yeah, who wouldn't want that as a parent? Guess what that easy to wipe off thing is coated with? PFAS, right? So now your baby bib. Oh, by the way, your diapers. So I'm going to sell you on, don't worry about washing diapers, just disposable, and we make them really cheap for you. Well, those are plastics and petroleum. And we know through the data that that is an endocrine disrupting, especially around the tender organs of a child, right? So these are being absorbed in the body. And also, every child, there was a great study in Environmental Working Group. Also, another amazing doctor, Dr. Shanna Sharma, wrote a great book on the epidemiological aspect of this stuff, because it's not just linear, it's now starting to affect children. And children being born have already in utero 200 man-made chemicals in the umbilical cord. Wow. So they always thought back in the day, oh, nothing, the body is going to protect, the mom's natural body is going to protect the baby, so the mom can kind of do anything. It's also the playbook of the smoking industry. Right. You're pregnant, the baby's safe. That's not true at all, right?
Well, so we know, fetal alcohol syndrome is a big deal.
Yeah. And so imagine then this soup that we live in, the 60 to 80,000 chemicals. So they are in the umbilical cord of children being born. And 2/3 of them are probable carcinogens and endocrine disruptors. So you're already flipping on gene expression and stress response of the child that hasn't even been born yet. So this is the soup. This is the unregulated Wild West. So I guess my hope is that, hey man, if you want change to happen, you got to face what the hell's going on. Why is this happening? I don't freaking know. Why did my dad suffer? I started to figure it out as he was a high functioning professor, right? Who would be hijacked and couldn't even access his brain anymore. Essentially, he'd just get fogged out. And so I'm seeing that, and then I'm seeing more and more of the chemicals that are just being unregulated. And I think, again, back to the question is, why are they there? Well, it's lazy, because there are great solutions. I have a whole third of the book is vetted solutions. Maybe don't put that easy to slide Teflon coated dental floss in your mouth anymore, right? Like, let's not do that. How about you get a nice organic piece of string that you can easily get dental floss, just wet it a little bit, then put it in your mouth, works just fine, right? Eliminate the chemical, increase your integration of less exposure, right? So that's the whole thing. Let's wake up and, perfumes, colognes, all of that stuff. There's all of these regulations that have all these loopholes in them. In the supplement industry, 20 years traveling around the world, finding botanicals, and then I'd finally get these great botanicals from around the world, and I'd formulate these products, and then I'd be in wrestling and shouting matches with the flavor companies going, hey, I just told you don't put these compounds in there, like say, and they would say, hey man, that's natural. And I'd
Right.
be like, why do you keep saying that when I keep testing the product and these flow agents and propylene glycols and stuff? Well, they said, well, you said natural. I said, yeah, but I didn't want these in there. Then I look in the bylaws of the FDA. I'm like, oh, they're allowing it in there.
And they're
And
allowing these things in, though they're likely carcinogens.
yes, over
So
and over and over again.
will it, in order for there to be like, and I have very little faith in governments and stuff like that. I just don't find that they're ever doing great things. But what would it take? Would it take like a private class action lawsuit or a bunch of people dropping dead that could be directly linked to that to get these things off the list of acceptable substances?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. The place I would first start is that we have 8 billion of us, and that's people, right? So it's these conversations. Let's have more of these conversations. Let's
Right.
wake up the mama bears and the testosterone filled men and go, hey man, we got to protect our home, right?
Yeah.
So let's protect our home. Let's minimize chemical neutering of these things, and let's just do this, kind of from the inside out, like opening your mouth to filtered water. Let's start there, and I can unpack some very simple things you can do, and then let's lower ultra processed food. Let's try to eliminate that totally, because that's its own other cacophony of chemicals and fake food and all of that stuff. Let's grow our own food. Let's, like, if you just start growing some food, you automatically eliminate pesticides, herbicides, like potential E. coli's, because they're even organic produce. They're blasting it with you know chicken and fertilizers, and that's where the E. coli comes. They're trying to create a fertilizer full of um, dead animals. Like it's crazy, these systems, when you start to unpack it. So we can raise up to the attention of what we can do in our own home, and then as we kind of go, yes, the mounting evidence, I find it so funny, right? So I'm a also in that camp of staring at the FDA writing an article about something that they're not regulating. Like, oh my God, like, you're talking about it, you're raising a flag to it, and yet you're not regulating it, or you're giving a pass and they're going to phase it out in 5 years.
Right.
Okay, right? So you're into this thing, and then there was a Toxic Substance Control Act that came by way of the PFAS, right? These are very dangerous accumulative chemicals that accumulate in your body and in the ecosystem. So, okay, so now you're enacting a regulation body because the other regulation bodies didn't regulate it. I don't get it, right? So now you're like, what is this? Is a freaking twilight zone. And I think it's more to, okay, some companies, McDonald's, Wendy's, all these fast food, because PFAS is also on the coating of packaging of the food, because God forbid the food sticks to the packaging. So they want this slippery substance, but that is now warm food that's chelating and pulling in more toxins. We know this. This is absolutely happening. So food connected and in plastic is pulling in endocrine disrupting phthalates, BPAs, BPHs, like all of that shit. So these are things that we can do. Stop using this shit. Stop using it. Be aware of it. No one's knowingly wanting to hurt themselves or their family. So my hope is that we turn towards this, face it, because listen, nothing changes if nothing changes. Nothing changes if you and I don't face this square on.
Okay, but
It's like,
with meat, I can't remember the last time. I mean, I think I'd have to go to a specialty butcher or even maybe Whole Foods to get something wrapped not in plastic. It's all wrapped in plastic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that slippery stuff that they use in the butcher thing. That's just all. I mean, the number one, I just eat plants, so I just eliminate that whole thing. But maybe if they would do this for you, so okay, they cut your meat or whatever, you bring your own container, right? You bring a glass container and say, hey, you have your glove on, you just cut this. Can you just put this in the container for me?
So even
You
that
know,
paper with the one slick side is no good.
unless you have a butcher that's using a wax paper,
Okay.
like you can find like be an initiator of like, hey, bro, it's not good for. Listen, that butcher touching that stuff every day, he's got higher guarantee. He's got high exposures of blood PFAS in high levels of PFAS in his blood, right?
Right.
So it's not good for him. That's the thing that I see about this whole thing. We may be talking about shampoo and conditioner and all that stuff, but the truth is, to create this stuff is inherently gnarly for the environment, for the workers that are creating it. Like, it is always destructive. So, as we can empower ourselves to create a sovereignty around our own ecosystem, that's just common sense. Now that we know that this shit is not in our best interest, that is saying no and is not voting anymore with our hard-earned dollars to support that company creating that shit, because that is also creating an environmental pollution extraction process. Like, that's eliminating. So that's how powerful we are. And when we all come together, all your listeners listening, I guarantee they'll be like, they're going to say, God damn it, right? They're going to be like, I don't want to have to think about this. But here's
No,
what I say.
it really is. It does create a thing of like, oh man, seems like a lot of work.
Dude, I wish it wasn't. I wish the regulatory bodies, I wish the quote unquote government people did the work, but they failed. They failed at this particular thing. So it's this invisible thing that we can put our heads down and just pretend, or there's going to be a bunch of people doing that. Or you go, listen, I don't know about you, but I have a body and I have my life. And I'm moving in this world, being exposed to this stuff. So you are being exposed. Up to you if you want to take ownership of your life. And I'm not saying, listen, I can be overwhelmed just like the next person, but it's just taking one step, making a better step in, like I said, filter the water, get a nice RO system that's getting rid of all that stuff. It's a couple $100.
Okay,
Now,
let's talk about the water because
yeah,
there was a point. It was a few years ago, and I caught wind of what we were paying for water. We would get bottled water; it would come in glass bottles. It was always heavy. I would get pitched at because I hadn't changed it out because none of the kids could pick it up. So I would change it out, and I had no idea what this cost. And then I saw a bill, and I was like, we're paying thousands of dollars a month for this bottled water. This is crazy. I'm just going to drink tap water. And within 3 days, I like was hoarse, my throat hurt, and I felt like crap. So I knew
wow.
like that was no good. And we got a filter. I don't know exactly what kind of filter, but let's talk about that. What is an RO filter?
Yeah, so reverse osmosis is basically a very small micron size filter that doesn't allow those contaminants to go through that membrane. So it also, so it's like 0 to 15 parts per million, right?
But it's not
Very,
creating distilled water.
very similar. So distilled water is evaporating and recondensing. So those particulates and those chemicals essentially don't come with the evaporation and the condensing again. So very similar. I would say both are great, but you've also now stripped the water. So you do need electrolytes. So the batteries of our body, which are the 70 trillion cells, the osmotic flow that happened between water, sodium, potassium pump of your water pulling in the necessary water, you need electrolytes.
Right.
Easy fix. So clean the water, RO or distillation, reverse osmosis or distillation. And then all you need to do is get a nice clean source of unrefined salt, right? So that has all the other trace minerals in it. Take a pinch of it, add to your glass, or if you have a, your gallon, whatever, just add a heaping pinch to it. And now you're virtually good. That's the easy hack. And now get yourself a nice glass bottle, right? So I take my bottle here and I fill it up when I'm going on a thing or whatever. I take this all over the world with me. Just empty it. And then when I can get to a place, hell, when I was filming our show Down to Earth, uh, I literally had the crew. I bought them an RO system because I figured we had 100 pieces of luggage anyway. Let's just add another one. And then I had one in my hotel room. I mean, that's an extreme example because I had the ability to do that. But as a home, now you have an RO system, a little pinch of salt. Now you have an incredible source of clean water. And then the shower thing, you can get virtually an adapter that take off the top screw, and then as long as you're getting a good charcoal filter, it's taking most of that type of stuff out. A little different when you're drinking the water, so that's why it's full RO. Now listen, if you can afford a full home filter,
RO showers.
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of things that you can do to kind of treat all of that, but that's a bigger lift for sure. But an RO system, like one I use is AquaTrue, goes on top of the counter. You can take it anywhere. You can fill up the back and it goes through. It's a great company. So, but literally Amazon, you can go on an RO system underneath the sink so you don't have to deal with on the counter. Like there's all kinds of things. And then once you do that, you're saving the thousands of dollars. Plus, you're also now not getting exposed to all of these chemicals, right? And you're a good example of that. Hydration is a cellular thing.
Yeah.
Hydration is a minute thing. So going from, you probably had a high quality water if they're giving it to you in glass and everything else, probably a good spring water. So yeah, man, if you can afford it, great. But 99% of people on the planet don't, number one, don't have a natural spring that they can go to. That's the number one. They have a spring that they can get real clean, fresh, tested water, go for it. That's the gold standard. But for us, we want to filter that. So that's the first thing that you can do. You open your mouth up, you're doing something every day, you want to be hydrated. It will improve your health. Guaranteed. Proper hydration will improve energy, sleep, metabolism, detoxification. Like water is a miracle, but the problem is we have a toxic tea of chemicals that we don't see, and that's the insidious side of the stuff. Even with the smoke and the whole tobacco industry, at least you could see someone smoking. You
Yeah,
don't.
well, I found, and listen, the majority of my effort in health wasn't initially about health. It was about weight loss. And now I'm interested in health much more than I was in the beginning. In the beginning, it was just like I'm uncomfortable, I'm not happy, right?
Mhm.
And I will say that, like, as far as processed foods go, I was living in a state that I couldn't recognize because I was inside of it. And
Right.
once I got out of it and spent some time out of it, when I would eat super processed foods, I could feel it. It was a lot different than when I was eating it every day.
Right.
And similar to what you're saying with the water, I'm sure I could, because there are people who drink tap water, and I'm sure I could
Yeah.
get used to drinking tap water and then not recognize that when I first started drinking it, it really hurt me. It caused me physical pain. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, so I think there's something too, like, if you're so accustomed to something because that's just the way you're living, it
Mhm.
it is hard to recognize a lot of this stuff.
I think you bring up a really, really important point, actually, because the great thing about humans is we can adapt.
Yeah.
We can adapt to anything. some of the fatal flaws, we go, oh, our ancestors did that. They were just surviving, man. That doesn't necessarily mean that was ideal. So let's just pump the brakes on just making all those assumptions. And then you have other things like, from a food perspective, you have the microbiological system, which are so complex and so amazing that it reacts to the environments. So if you have your digestive system and your microbes, and you are creating an ultra processed candy land for them, they literally will jockey for position and kill out some of the beneficial bacteria. And then they're, through almost the speed of light, through biophotonics, they will cause you craving when you think that's your craving, when in fact it's actually the bacteria of the environment that you created. So then you've set yourself on a different path. You start to going, I want more of that soda, I want more of that ultra processed food. You've created a different environment. When you get out of it, like you suggested, and what you actually did, when you get out of that, you start feeding yourself full of whole, healthy food. Your then microbes go back to a more optimal balance, and it pushes out some of the negative bacteria. So now it's literally compartments where they push that out. And then that bacteria starts to call cravings of that environment that you then shifted into. So now your cravings of the ultra processed food kind of go away over time. And then, to your point, you're not even set up to receive that food in that way again. And so when you do it, you're hypersensitive and you're going, whoa, what is happening? This is kind of abusive. Same thing with water, man. The body is so incredible. We have 7 to 10% of the entire America doesn't even drink an ounce of water a day. Doesn't
Really?
even drink. Yes.
How
So
are they
how many?
how are they not just dehydrated? Oh, they're drinking soda and stuff like
Yeah, they're
that.
drinking soda, and they're massively dehydrated.
Right.
But the body and the brain is so good. All it knows is it's a survival mechanism. If it were to put so much emphasis on the fact that you're in a fire alarm dehydrated state, you wouldn't have the faculties to then find water. Do you understand what I mean? So your
Yeah.
body is like just trying to deal with it. When you introduce water and get consistent with water, you will feel like, at first you'd be like, oh my God, I'm drinking so much water. And it will take literally a week, 2 weeks, where your body will then start to go, oh, I'm not in a desert anymore. And I'm actually able to receive more water. And what happens is you get a lot more energy. Your skin starts to feel better. Your eyesight can improve. Like, all of these ancillary things that you had no business being able to hydrate because you were just in a survival mechanism. The same thing, dude, with these fatal conveniences, with fragrances and deodorants and all of this stuff. You get used to a smell. The olfactory system is one of the most, if not the most powerful system of the body. So they know this. We can manipulate people through the olfactory system. We can hijack them through, oh, that smell. How many of us are using the same kind of smell or laundry detergent that we grew up with? Like, oh, my mom, and that reminds me of, what my mom used, and all of these things. So we get used to this stuff. My dad, when he started sending me this stuff 30 years ago, I started using these clean shampoos and laundry detergent because I couldn't hang out with my dad unless I prepared myself to
Right.
be around him, because that exposure would knock him out. So as I was doing that, I'm like, wow, I'm starting to feel better. And then as soon as I would feel and smell and sense a fragrance, I felt like it was abusive, because my body now was more sensitive to chemicalized. I'm not saying like essential oil and gifting things that are gifting for your olfactory can improve your moods. on a subtle level and also give your body a sense of peace rather than fighting this abusive nature. So it's important what you said, because it's also, this stuff is not acute, right? It's not like you're taking the deodorant and you have cancer in an hour, right?
Right.
You know,
No,
it's
it's chronic. Yeah.
this chronic stuff. And this is where the mounting evidence of, like, some of these chemicals have half-lives, right? So the phthalates and the parabens that are show up in beauty products and lotions and all of this stuff, they're a preservative. They're a cheap preservative that keeps these things. There's reasons for these things, but they're lazy and they have these negative consequences. And yeah, they move in and out of the body, some of them, but then we reapply, we re-expose, like, and that's where the incessant stress is always hitting us. And my hope is, again, have these conversations. Let's just start cleaning up our micro environment, our homes, and have these conversations. And then let's create the pressure of the billions of us so that we go, hey man, no longer is it okay to have these endocrine disrupting compounds in these products,
Yeah.
because it's hurting our children. They're moving into menstruation. Girls are moving into menstruation sometimes 10 years before they should. Us as men, we're losing our testosterone. We're losing literally the ability for sperm to actually procreate life. This is happening. This is real world data. We are consuming on average 200,000 microbits of plastic every year. That's petroleum. That's chemicals. That's like, this is real shit,
Right.
right? That we're dealing with. So I just want people to freaking wake up to it, face it, and let's just do something different. And we can make better products ourselves. There's a lot of DIY stuff, and we don't have to be a victim to stuff and to agencies and to corporations that ultimately don't give a shit about us.
And so there is stuff out there, right? Like I'm thinking, like, I don't know. I've never paid attention to any of the reasons why, but my wife has never been into fragrances. She always gets a real sensitivity to this stuff, and so we've never had scented laundry detergent, scented soaps, nothing like that. She likes just bar of glycerin, right? Is her favorite
Right.
soap, or Castile soap, something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
peppermint
yeah.
stuff.
Castile.
I'm
Yeah.
not such a huge fan of this, but this is my wife. But my wife will not even accept a receipt in a grocery store, and gets angry if they put it in the bag. Like, she doesn't want to touch that. And is that all
She
stuff that she should be? I don't know why I never paid attention to why she did
she's
this.
gonna look at this book and she goes, that's exactly why I'm doing it.
Right.
She is the mother bear that has looked under the hood and seen that this stuff is gnarly. There is plasticizers and BPA and gnarly things coming off receipts. Don't ever touch them. Don't ever ask for them. Send me a freaking email. I don't need the receipt. Like,
Right.
why the hell is this stuff in there? The poor cashiers at this stuff. And yeah, she's already aware of the crazy thousands of chemicals in the fragrance world. As soon as you say fragrance and you say that something is a trade secret, that is a nice way of creating a loop out of telling anybody or doing any tests on your proprietary blend. Are you freaking nuts?
Right.
Right?
I've seen that in GNC, proprietary blend, and I'm always like, what kind of hocus pocus is this? Just give me the creatine.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's trying to, but yeah, in the fragrance world and the natural flavor, I'm not saying every natural flavor is bad, but you have to have companies that are doing their own research, their own proprietary blends within that, and then they should be proud. Hey, man, I've developed supplements in the world. I've been in this space for 20 years. Like I told you, like I was fighting with these people. So we had to create our own standard But on the back of the label, you don't see that. You just see natural flavors. And
Right.
so it's always suspect. So you have to unpack all of that stuff. So kudos to your wife is saving your children. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but it is. It is.
Well,
She is
I mean,
saving them from an undercurrent of a chemical exposure that's going to affect you and them for
I
sure.
gotta say, I'm really happy we're having this conversation because my oldest daughter just had a kid. I'm now a grandfather, and
Congratulations.
she comes to visit us, and she's like, I need these type of Pampers, and I of course say, I'll run to Walgreens and get you Pampers, and she says, absolutely not. This baby does not wear. And I've always sitting here like, you guys are so extra. The girls in my life are all so particular about this shit, but maybe they know something I don't know.
Ding, ding, ding. I mean, why would you add extra layers of effort if there wasn't a really good reason,
Right.
right? The radar, that's what I want to say to the mama bears out there, man. You have an innate protection of your child and of your children and of your babies. Don't turn it off in any way with any products, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, the FDA, the USDA, even the FCC and the EPA, all these people, I believe, number one, that they have good people in those organizations trying to do the right thing. So I'm not here to throw people under the bus, but, they largely haven't done the job that's actually required. And so what happens is all of these other satellite nonprofits pop up to fill in the gaps. There's a great mom. I think it's called, I have no affiliation with her, but in all of the research, she has spent her life. I think it's called mamification, like
Mummification. Okay.
something like that. And she dedicates her life and gets this shit tested, right? So you have also Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. You've got apps that they have going, nope, not that product, not that product, this product, right? You have cosmetics. What is it? The Safe Cosmetic. I forget their name, but there's there's organizations that are also, because all of that other stuff in the beauty side of things, number one, they're manipulating women to, like, you have to wear all this stuff, and then they go, well, you don't want it to streak, and so then that's where they slide in all of this other stuff. You don't want your shirt to wrinkle, well, that's where they slide in more PFAS. You don't, Gore-Tex, and all these things, like all of that stuff. Whenever they say wrinkle free and stain free and your carpets, don't don't buy them. Don't use them. These are chemicals. These are things that, the DuPonts of the world and the Scotch Guards of the world, these things are not in your best interest. And so don't fall for it. Go back to the diapers, the organic diapers, and you know what you can do? Here's an idea. Wash them.
Yeah.
Right? Wash them in clean laundry detergents. And I get it, man. They market it to the convenience side of it. We don't want to think that these
No.
things can be harmful. We just don't want to.
Well,
And
I
we
think
don't,
we also don't want to think. We just want, we want to just like go about our lives and not have to worry about anything, you know.
yeah.
I want to
Yeah,
ask you about water bottles. I was doing a movie in Mexico with this amazing, wonderful guy, Jonathan Tucker. He's a brilliant actor and a good friend of mine now. And I was drinking out of plastic bottles because I was not at home and I could suddenly let my lazy get on a little bit, and plastic was allowed because I didn't have a wife there yelling at me. But he came and he was like, no, 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 you can't drink out of plastic. He gave me a glass jar, and he even had like a mason jar cozy made for it. It was camo. It was really cool. And so
nice.
I then was using glass, but I got home and I have a Yeti bottle and it's apparently all BPA free because there is a plastic spout on it. Is that safe?
Safer. Yeah.
Safer.
Yeah, yeah.
Safer. So, but there still can be runoff even if it's BPA free.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't dove into Yeti itself. The problem with you could run into some chelation of even the metals, right?
Oh,
There's some interactions that can create, and depending on what's in the water, there can be some electrolysis action in the water, but infinitely better than plastic
right.
because people just need to understand, like if you have a quote unquote BPA, BPH, the problem is with you say BPA free and they create all these other derivatives of the and then BPH and now that's starting to be, but they're also keep creating other, it's like a freaking super strain of freaking chemicals.
Where they just alter the molecule ever so slightly so it no longer is BPA, but it's close enough to get what they need out of it.
Exactly. So it's that game. So, yeah, I would go if you can infinitely better. So I'll praise you in that for sure. And harder plastics are absolutely better than the softer plastic. Basically, that's more chemicals, that's more phthalates. And phthalates are these binding estrogen compounds. That is that is like consuming plastic, consuming water, you're consuming plastic. If you're consuming water that's full of regular water bottles, but basically the ones that you can buy, you're guaranteed endocrine disrupting drinking that water. And that's going to hurt you over time, without a doubt. So harder plastics, the better. So if you're in a bind and you choose and you don't have another hard, just choose a hard plastic and then go to glass. Yes, use glass as much as possible. I love this company. I don't get anything from them, but it's called Blue Water, Blue Bottle Love. And I carry this thing everywhere. It's got like nice little etchings on it and sayings and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun. And they're
And I
great, yeah,
I
great
have
gifts too.
seen at airports, and I started doing this because it just didn't exist until recently, as far as I was aware. But you can bring an empty bottle, and there are filling stations, which I
Yeah.
think is probably even superior and a hell of a lot cheaper. Buying a bottle of water in an airport's pretty expensive.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean they can get away with it because you're
You're trapped. You're held
you're
hostage.
stuck. You know what I don't know if this is a fact, but I'd love for your audience to try it because I'm going to try it the next time I jump on a plane. I think someone was saying that if you say it's medical grade water, they have to let you through with that water,
Really?
and they you don't have to explain any more than that. But you can say something like, yeah, I would just say, if they do ask, going, yes, it's got special electrolytes in there. So I'm
Well,
going to try that next time.
yeah, I
And
will
then,
say, because one of my kids has type 1 diabetes, and so and this is another thing that when she was 4, juice in our house. We didn't really have juice in our house, but juice became medicinal. If
yeah,
if her blood sugar is truly crashing, we have to administer juice. And we
good.
have gotten that boxed juice onto planes simply because it is medicinal for her.
Yeah. So yeah, so let's try this out. And if your audience tries it and responds, I'd love to. I'm going to dig into that now that I reminded myself. I'm going to dig into that and see if that's actually true.
Yeah.
Because I've dug into the EMFs around those scanners and stuff, and that's a bunch of shit too. I've never actually gone through those scanners. I would suggest no one goes through those. You can opt out, and that's your legal right to opt out, and then you just get a healthy little pat down. Uh,
You get familiar with the TSA agent.
say what's up.
Yeah.
Um,
We've gotten breast milk through too. When my wife is pumped and we've had excess breast milk, they allowed that through too. So I know the liquids rule, while it might be pretty firm, it does bend
mhm,
in areas. So it
yeah.
might bend for medical grade water too. I don't know what the hell medical grade water is. Is that like,
It's just
Ringer's lactate or something?
it's a special. Yeah, you could come up with your own little, monologue around it.
Right.
It's structured. It's electrolytes. It's been infused with special structuring compounds because I dehydrate on a plane and I pass out. Like
Yeah.
that's a story.
Maybe
You
try to get it
feel
put
free to
into
use that one.
an IV bag or something, see what happens. But then that's plastic. Then we're
But then
screwed.
you're,
That's
yeah,
plastic.
I've actually talked to some doctors who are trying to make some initiatives in some of the plastic overuse of this stuff because it's a really it's a really big issue.
Right.
Imagine that they're giving IVs and okay, it's going right into your body and that's all plastic, right? There is a shift that we need to do, but we can do these things pretty powerfully, right? So we can let's create our own water. Let's get a filter. Let's get a nice glass bottle for you and your family. Let's get used to filling it up and let's add the electrolytes back in and then take it with you whenever you can. And just keep your wits about you when you're buying water because most of it's a sham-a-lam, right? And you don't have to do that. And that's a very vulnerable thing. You're opening up your body to a substance. And so
Yeah.
let's make sure that it's clean and effective.
And it is possible to exist in this way without becoming like an off the grid prepper type.
Yeah. I mean, listen, they started it. They're leaving chemicals in our freaking tap water.
Right.
I'm not making this shit up. I have 25 researchers working for me. Like we're scouring the research. It is loaded with this research. You will probably swear looking at this book too, going, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Why the hell would they let that again? I don't know, man. But it's far too long. Let's put pressure because like you said before, like we as the people, not to be, cheesy, we are the people. Let's be aware of our surroundings. Let's be aware of what we're doing so that we can stop doing the things that are undermining our health. And when you do that, you feel better too because you're also taking action of integrating and making choices going, shit, I am glad I know that and now I have a solution for it. And then like you said, you slowly start to create this energy. And I'm being very figurative about this. You literally start gaining your energy back, not only in the lowering of the chemical exposure, but also the up leveling of quality things going in your body that are then, and then the dopamine effect, if I can go so far as saying, taking action on something that's integrated that you go, you know what? I feel really good about this water that I'm consuming because I've eliminated the riffraff. So I've
Yeah.
got my own water source, I've got my own bottle. I now have a sovereignty there, man. And so all of these things added up over time, you just create a clean life, a clean household, and then you start having, again, people don't realize how good they can be until they actually take the steps to be that. You don't get to know what that feels like. Most people, if you ask them, hey, how you feeling? Yeah, pretty good. They get used to whatever it is that they feel. You probably know this. When
Yeah.
you get healthy, you're like, holy shit, I feel like a new person,
Well,
right?
yeah, you feel like a new
So
person,
when
and
you
then going back, it hits you so hard that it does eventually become not worth it.
totally, totally, yeah, because that's the insanity. Like, why would I put myself through that again? Because that's horrible, and there's no good outcome from that at
Yeah.
all, right?
Yeah. Darin, thank you so much. This is so much to think about. I can't wait to read your book. I mostly want to skip ahead to just all the solutions, just so I can tell my wife, like, I can say, like, well, you didn't think of this one.
Well, it's a tip of the iceberg. The book is a tip of the iceberg. I do these every week on my podcast. I dig into more because it's like, hey, don't do this, do this. Because that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Hey, this one throwing up a little red flag, let's do this instead. So it's all about empowerment and solutions. And your wife's on track, man.
She definitely knows some of this, but I don't think she knows all of it. So it's going to be fun to key her into this.
Well, even I don't, because we're a forever student of this
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, brother,
Amazing.
thank you,
Thank you,
brother.
sir. I
Appreciate it.
appreciate this.